I'm so pleased to introduce the amazing Christina Hennington, Second Harvest Heartland's 2020 board chair and Target's executive vice president and chief growth officer. Christina, take it away.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's really nice to be here this morning, and I'm honored to be part of this conversation. But before we begin the discussion on the panel today, I just wanted to take a second to reflect on just what's been an incredible year and all that we've gone through together. We've all helped our kids through pre-algebra classes while caring for a sick spouse in the next room or a Zoom call that was happening next door. We've taken on extra shifts at work so our sick coworkers can rest up. We've given precious time and stretched budgets to shore up our local nonprofits to help those who are struggling and out of work. Together, we've done our part, and then miles more of it seems, to keep our families well, our economy humming, and our community strong. And I am here today with a group that's been critical to our community's emergency response. A crew that has worked diligently to keep everyone fed, delivering 105 million meals last year to our partners and programs in the community. The idea that guided them was pretty simple. No one should battle COVID hungry. And while we had to miss loved ones, weddings, or other big milestones, no one should have to miss a meal. The teams were inspired by families like the Crawfords, who braved layoffs, COVID diagnoses, and then hunger. It happens just that easily for so many members of our community. Aaron and Sheila Crawford turned to their local food shelf, and thankfully, their food shelf was fully stocked with emergency food boxes from Second Harvest Heartland. The fridge was full again, and the family was able to cover urgent expenses like rent payment and clothes for the kids. Aaron and Sheila felt a moment of stability. They could do this. Their Crawfords are in a better place now, but they've not fully bounced back financially. And it's going to be a process to rebuild stability. And they are not alone. A decade of progress in the fight against food hunger was undone by COVID. Nearly overnight. Today, 1 in 9 Minnesotans, including 1 in 6 kids, experience food insecurity. We've distributed 23% more food, and our food shelf partners have seen a 58% increase in visitors since COVID began last March. Personally, I want to tell you, it was an honor to help lead the amazing Second Harvest Heartland team as board chair during the months of our response to the COVID hunger surge. It's also an honor to mark a year into our response effort with this group of frontline hunger fighters. So let me introduce these awesome panelists today, because I've got frontline workers who've been on the ground doing it every single day for Second Harvest Heartland in the warehouse or out in the community, ensuring that food and assistance made it to those in need. First, we've got Cass Shute, a volunteer experience ambassador, Raza Bale, a SNAP outreach specialist, Shar Graff, an agency partner specialist, and Terry Shute, a food rescue driver. You guys ready to get in this? All right. Cass, why don't we start with you? We know that volunteers are an essential part of the workforce at Second Harvest Heartland. How did you change things up to keep people coming into work and volunteer, but keep them safe and serving during COVID? And can people volunteer now?
Yeah, so if you look at our volunteer center now, it looks a lot different than it did over a year ago. All of our stations are now 6 feet apart. We have a lot of screening questions that people have to go through before they come in to volunteer. They need to take their temperature, and then just a lot of extra cleaning processes just to make sure that everyone that comes in and then our staff is safe as well. And people can volunteer. We do have limited shift capacity, just because, like I said, stations do have to be 6 feet apart, but there are volunteer shifts going on both in Maplewood and Brooklyn Park. And then there's a lot of opportunities behind the scenes as well, like some skill-based, pro bono consulting, maybe volunteer delivery drivers, and all those things are on our website too.
Awesome. So lots of ways to contribute. Thank you for that. Terry, let's switch gears a little bit here. You and your fellow drivers represent where rubber hits the road. No pun intended there, but we got to get food out to partners every day. We know that work has evolved a lot over the last year and that the team had to constantly pivot as there were fluctuations in both supply and capacity. Can you tell us more about how you handle that and how things are going?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and it's great to be here. It's been a challenging year. It's definitely been a year focused around teamwork, and we've had to evolve a lot of different thinking and behave a little differently and reach out to folks more frequently. So it's been a big effort.
What switching gears a little bit, then actually I'm going to skip to Shar because it kind of builds on the question that Sherry was talking about. The fluctuations in capacity and the unpredictability of last year. As an agency relations specialist, how did you manage that? You serve as an intermediary between Second Harvest Heartland and our agency partners. But how did you manage the fluctuations, and how did they manage 23% more food through their doors?
Well, when the pandemic hit, our top concern at Second Harvest, of course, was for the safety of the staff and the volunteers and the neighbors that they serve. So we kept them, tried to keep them updated on what was coming out from the state Department of Public Health and recommendations for how to operate in a different mode safely. And at the same time, because many of our partners operate with all volunteers, and a lot of those volunteers were in the vulnerable group of over 65. And so they lost a lot of their volunteers. Many were down, 80% with their volunteers. So that was a hardship for them as well. So they went then to a drive-by model where they were pre-packing boxes and carrying them out the door to the neighbors that came by for food. And trying to keep, as much distance between each other as they could. And Second Harvest responded by making up emergency boxes that had the food shelf items in them already, the food items in them already, so that because they didn't have a lot of volunteers to pre-pack either. So Second Harvest did emergency food boxes. We sourced boxes for those who wanted to pack their own. And then as things progressed, because the people that use our community food shelves are used to having choice now. They get to choose their own items in normal times. And they were missing that. And so the food programs then started to offer a little more choice. They had people call ahead and read through a list with them so that they could choose the items they wanted, or put it online so people could go through the items and choose the items and order online. So they got very creative, and we just did everything we could to support them.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's been a year of agility and creativity, but all in service of just helping those who need food get it. So, I think Raza, a thing or two about that. You and the SNAP outreach team processed over 12,000 SNAP referrals in 2020, ultimately helping 6,700 households with their SNAP applications and recertifications. What was that like for the team, and how did you manage that kind of a surge?
Well, we have a strong SNAP team, and we're pretty flexible, but we did have to stop all of our outreach into the community just to keep staff and obviously folks safe. So we were able to have a little bit of time there. We were already set up with equipment and resources to work remotely, since most of our outreach team does work remotely already. So we were already set up to just hit the ground running with that. And we also were able to bring in some colleagues from other departments to make first initial phone calls to folks because we were getting such an influx of referrals in. It was hard to keep up. So we were able to utilize some of our colleagues to make first initial phone calls, kind of get some information from them, get that information into our database, and then we call them back later to take applications from them, answer any questions. So that helped tremendously. And then later on, the state did change some systems and processes to the SNAP program that was really beneficial to us and folks applying for SNAP.
I think we can see a tremendous amount of agility and flexibility there too. It's been pretty much across the board. I've been able to witness it now for several years working on the board, and it's just been amazing what you've all accomplished this past year, especially. So we have a series of more questions. We'd love to hear more from the audience on what's on your mind and make this a little more conversational. Elizabeth, do we have questions?
Whoops, we do indeed. So we have a question for Terry from Joanna in St. Peter. She says, I love seeing your.
Oh, you went on mute, Elizabeth.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, great. Question from Joanna in St. Peter for Terry. She says she loves to see our trucks on the road. She always gives us a honk and a wave. She wants to know if that's an okay thing to do. Is that safe? And then she just says, keep up the good work.
That's wonderful. It's great energy. We appreciate it. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So then we have a couple of questions just for the whole roundtable here. And so anybody can tackle the question when so inspired. What day do you most remember since you began working on COVID response? And if you picture future generations asking what it was like to be responding in these times, what story would you share?
Well, I can't think of any one particular day because mostly the days have all kind of run together.
Yeah.
But just definitely instances of days, talking with folks that are in need of help. It's been really, it gets emotional. So we are so glad, we're thankful that we're there to help folks for sure. But I do remember one gentleman that was applying for SNAP, never thought he would ever have to reach out and ask for assistance. And it's really hard for folks to do that. He was the sole breadwinner for his family. They had a special needs child. His wife stayed at home. And he was really getting very emotional on the phone and didn't think he would ever have to do this. I think that those calls stand out for me because there are so many people never thought they'd be in this situation. And I'm just glad we're there to help them.
Me too. And Raja, I know that that's such an important moment where we work really hard to communicate to folks that it's great to ask for help, that it is the thing to do when you need help. So can I just ask what you say in those moments to sort of reassure folks that they're doing their part by getting the help?
Absolutely. So I usually just tell them this is what the program's there for, is to kind of bridge this gap so you can get the focus on the things that you need to focus on. If you have food, you can just put your resources to other things. And also that it's think of it as insurance. We all have insurance, homeowners, medical. You're paying into it. You hope and pray you don't have to ever use it, but it is there if you do need it. And that's what this program is like.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Other members of the panel want to share moments that really stand out of the past 12 months of hard work?
I guess I just remember going out to help because the USDA came through with the farm to families food distribution boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the counties, the agencies were out there doing those at least once a month. And the first ones that we had, it was so surprising and heartwarming to see that there were, at least a mile of cars lined up for these. And when people came through, they were like, thank you, thank you. And it was people that, never thought they would ever, be in a food line before. But those were times that I'll remember.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. All
You know,
right.
kind of maybe building on that, what are you hopeful for throughout this next year? Anyone? These are such good human stories, reminder about what's really behind all the numbers. The numbers are impressive, but the human stories are the ones that matter. And so makes me think about hope.
Yeah, I think we've learned some lessons actually during this time, that to reach people who are in need that maybe don't want to, show their faces, give their names, want to stay as private as possible when getting food. The drive-by distributions worked well for them. It was low contact, and they didn't have to give a lot of information out, and it was put right in their car. Didn't take a lot of time, because time is another thing that working people that need. So we've learned some new ways to get the food out to people that need it.
Fantastic, Shar. Anybody else on the panel want to share something they're hopeful about, and sort of a nod to Shar's good build, something that they think we're going to carry forward, a lesson learned from these months of hard work?
So visiting all the different various places here in the Twin Cities, mostly, my experience has been the volunteer staff have been just incredible. The turnout has just been really inspiring. And I feel like a lot of folks have not just waited in long lines, but they've also worked themselves into organizations and into the community, wanting to help as they can. Talking to different leaders of the food shelves, they have welcomed them. And it's great because the relationships have really grown from driving by a building, but now they're going in and volunteering and participating. It's really created a lot of community.
Absolutely. We love to see that. And one thing that I've noticed throughout the past year is how folks consider volunteering to just be a part of their lives, a part of their week. And so they've really missed it. And so it's wonderful to see that we've been able to welcome them pretty much throughout COVID, and that we'll keep that up. Cass, anything you want to add to that point about just the power of volunteering?
Yeah, and just the power of people just showing up too. 2020 dealt us a lot of stuff, and a lot of us didn't know what to do or how to handle it, but people just kept on showing up for each other, whether it was here to volunteer or donations or pop-up food shelves due to civil unrest. And that's all we can really do. You just keep showing up for each other, because no matter what you're dealing with, if you got somebody else to help, that definitely goes a long way.
Yeah, and would love to hear a little bit more about the volunteer experience. These have been difficult times, so what's keeping it light? What kind of music are you listening to in the volunteer center, or in the truck? What's keeping it light?
We listen to a lot of classic rock in the volunteer center. We have an ongoing playlist that we all add to, but the basic genre is classic rock, and that's one of my favorites, so I'm okay with that. But then also a lot of our volunteers, it's songs that everyone knows. So every once in a while you'll go over and somebody's taping and they're singing, and yeah, that's pretty much what keeps it light. It's also that all these volunteers I work with every day, I've seen them more than I've seen my friends since the start of the pandemic. So we've definitely built some really solid relationships here.
What about you, Terry? What are you jamming to on the road?
Yeah, you just kind of mix it up. Every day is a little different. Some days, you realize the gravity of the reality, and you you just kind of keep it quiet. And other days it's great to go out there and feel the privilege of going to work every day and just getting a chance to help something and help somebody and you know, maybe make a receiver, you know, happier than they were when you got there. Maybe making you know, making a better time for the volunteers so they have better opportunity to unpack and get things ready to go. So yeah, it's every day is a little different, I guess.
That's such a good,
Oh.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's such a good take on it. I would love to hear just, you know, what would, from any of you, what do you wish people knew about your job? As we've heard some of the examples, like it's, you know, how you're having an impact and grateful for the opportunity, and even the word privilege, but I'd love to hear from some of the rest of you too. What do you wish people knew about your job?
Well, I'll go. So I think that the biggest thing for us, not only do we have to know the ever-changing SNAP policies that can occur, but also just building really good relationships in our community with other service providers, not only just our agency partners, but others as well. But I think for me personally, I think just we're such good listeners. We have to be really good listeners. Everybody's got a story, and most people want to tell that story, and we give them that avenue to be able to do that and listen and just with a kind and empathetic ear. So I think I really feel like that is one of my, for me personally, the most important part of my job is not only getting them connected to food, but to listen to people, because so many people don't get a chance to have that, especially now.
Fantastic. So I will jump in with a few audience questions as well. So we have a great question from Anne Louise. She's wondering, now that schools are opening again, is there hope that Second Harvest can reduce food insecurity for children again? So Raja, maybe you and I can tackle that one together. I know that SNAP is a tremendously important tool when it comes to fighting child hunger. So if you're willing to kind of give us the SNAP perspective, and then maybe I can give some general thoughts.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, SNAP is probably the most important program out there that somebody who is in need of help to be on. It gives you that the funds to be able to put food on the table, and it's certainly with families as well. And then we have a really strong child hunger team that works on working with schools and setting up referrals and having our schools in the neighborhoods that can give them everything that they need to know, get them in touch with our SNAP team, just working very well with the community on that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the only point that I would add is kind of along the lines about what you just said about our child hunger fighting team. We have a group of folks who spend all day, every day thinking about how to reduce child hunger in the state. And they've done such an incredible job of delivering meals in totally different ways and helping school partners do the same. So it's a pretty complicated problem to think about kiddos who used to get 2 meals a day at school and are now learning from home how to get meals out. And so there's more than I could even speak to right now, but we've helped folks deliver meals to homes and introduce curbside pickup for families. And now as we head into spring, we're gearing up to make sure that kids who usually access summer meals through rec centers or park programs absolutely know that they can still access those meals. And we want to make sure that every family knows that.
And if I can just say, kind of build on that, with those pickup meals that are occurring, I believe that through the end of the year, they will also, or the end of the summer, be open to all families. Before in the past, it had been just children that were able to pick up those summer meals at locations, but they opened it up that all family members can grab those meals.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right, fantastic. One wonderful question that I want to pose is, what can the community do to make every one of your jobs easier? So she's asking about each individual on the panel. Who would like to start?
I can start.
Thanks, Shar.
Um, well, I just think that it would be great if people could reach out to their local food shelves or food pantries and volunteer, or give their time. Bring your family into volunteer shifts, and make sure your neighbors know where the food shelf is, what the hours are. Just be a good person who's reaching out to those who might be hidden in your neighborhood. It might be your next door neighbor that you never knew was going hungry. So make sure when you're out and about and talking, that people know about the food shelf, where the food shelf is, the hours, and especially community newcomers. Reach out to them and welcome them, and let them know that the food shelf is a welcoming place as well.
Right. It should just be part of joining and living in a community to know where those resources are. I think I hear you say so.
And then if you need the help yourself, don't feel bad about accessing help.
And folks who are participating can find a whole list of food shelves and meal programs in their areas. We've just put the links in the chat. So please do use that information. Great. Let's just kind of work our way around the panel. This sort of call about how folks can help us. Cass, how about you?
Yeah, so just kind of going off of what Shar said, something I always encourage my volunteers to do is just talk about hunger. I know a couple panel members have mentioned that there's a lot of people in this situation that never really saw themselves asking for help to feed their families. So just kind of breaking down the stigma that there's something wrong with that. I mean, we all need to, rely on each other sometime, and then just encourage the use of resources. I think some people might not apply for SNAP or CSFP because they're only skipping one meal a week, where there's maybe somebody skipping one meal a day. So they think that they might be like taking food away from them, but that's not the case. There's enough food out there. We just need to get it to everyone. So don't hesitate to use those resources.
Absolutely.
I would definitely build off of that. I feel like we're working, our business is finding the food. I mean, that's what we do. We organize and find it and distribute it. So taking away the idea that, someone else needs it more, that's a big one. That's a big mountain to climb, to convince folks that, you're absolutely important enough to have a meal.
Yeah.
We will make that happen.
Yep. I love that way of saying it, Terry.
I've just been so inspired by how you've all answered this question, but the idea of listening that Raza brought up, that everyone has a story and that everyone needs an outlet to share it, that there is absolutely no shame in asking for help, and that's what the resources are there for, and that this is insurance like we all contribute to. And this is more widespread in the community than I think anyone of us wants to realize in this great country, but it's pervasive. And so being there for our neighbors to help them in time of need is what this organization does. But then being okay, taking advantage so that people can get back on their feet or just get through the week. It's really important. So there's lots of ways to contribute to that dialogue in a productive way, or resources, or volunteer, or financially, in multiple ways.
Fantastic. Christina, I can't think of a better way to wrap things up. That was just perfect. It's gone too fast. We are already out of time for the conversation, folks, but thank you so much to the big audience this morning. We so appreciate the questions, and to all the panelists. We're so grateful for everything you do all day. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great morning.